is ANN News Brief.
Good afternoon, I'm Lucy Ademi. The Uganda government has announced a further easing of coronavirus restrictions in the country, even as the COVID-19 infection rate continues to rise. President Yoweri Museveni says the country cannot remain under restrictions indefinitely, citing the economy's weakened health in the wake of the pandemic. The president said international borders will be reopened for tourists who would have taken coronavirus tests at least 72 hours before arrival and taken straight to their holiday destinations. Returning Uganda citizens who have tested negative for COVID-19 will be allowed to self-quarantine at home. The president also said places of worship are now allowed to reopen, but with a limited number of congregants. Other rafts of measures taken by the government to keep the country running includes lifting a ban on private and public transport in districts bordering neighboring countries, allowing resumption of outdoor sport activities with no spectators. Final year students in primary, secondary and tertiary institutions will resume learning in mid-October, but decision on the other categories of learners will be made by January next year. The country began easing restrictions in May, but rate of infection continues to rise. At least 6,000 coronavirus cases have so far been confirmed, with 63 deaths. The health ministry blames the rise in infections on the public's complicity to social distancing and wearing of masks. The Sudan has sent a high-level delegation to the United Arab Emirates to negotiate with American officials as the country pursues removal from the U.S. list of countries that sponsor terrorism. The Sudanese delegation is headed by the country's leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. The Sudan was added to the list more than 2 decades ago in 1993 because of its support for Islamist militants, including Osama bin Laden, who lived in the country for 5 years. As part of the negotiations, the U.S. has asked the Sudan to pay more than $300 million as compensation to the families of victims of terror attacks. The U.S. government is also trying to persuade the Sudan to normalize its relations with Israel. We'll be right back.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Liberia's Nobel Peace Prize winner and peace activist Lema Roberta Bowe will launch a campaign against election-related violence today. Liberia is scheduled to hold midterm senatorial elections in December. Bowe says the campaign will involve hundreds of young people who will be peace ambassadors. Bowe urged young people not to get paid by rival politicians to propagate violence. She said the usual $20 paid for those acts of violence has led many young persons away from paths that could have made them doctors, lawyers, and scientists. She said instead many of the young persons are walking the streets of Monrovia, maimed and as amputees. The campaign will also encourage voters to question those seeking elective positions. That is ANN News Brief at 1. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I'm Lucy Ademi.